Okay, now it's Mike's turn. Mike Reed, Comscore'dan Avrupa kıdemli başka what's your title really? Fully senior
SVP Managing Director.
Senior Vice President Managing Director.
Yes.
Comscore Avrupa'nın SVP Managing Director'ı Mike Reed, sunumu da Turkey in the Global Internet and the Future of Online Measurement. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Ada. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Ada, for inviting me along to speak again this year. I have to say, I'm really surprised it's expanded hugely, and congratulations to you. I guess I'm asked to speak to set a scene. Actually, did a very good job actually looking at a number of topics that I'm going to cover as well, although I'm not going to cover mobile. What I'd like to do is just remind you a little bit about Comscore, because we're a global organization. We've grown a bit too. We've grown to 43 countries. That's 2 more than last year. And we've opened a couple more offices around the world. We also bought a new company. I'll talk about that a little later. It's called AdExpose. And we've launched a couple of new, really quite exciting products. The one thing that hasn't grown is the number of people that are employed. So we all seem to be working a little harder as well. We've broken up our product offering into 4 fairly distinct areas, although they all cross over and interact. I'm not going to go and talk about all 4. Today what I'll be doing is talking a bit about audience measurement across the web mainly. I'll also be talking about campaign planning and campaign validation. And I'll also be talking about some ad effectiveness. So, to set a scene, well, where do you sit in the global economy? Well, the world internet population has grown by 10% in just 1 year. It's being driven, of course, by the Asia-Pacific and the Latin American regions, growing around 14 or 16% each year. Europe is slowing down. It's down to 5% this year. And the USA is only growing at 2%. It's just got to almost total penetration. In Europe, the leaders are actually Russia is growing massively. It's now very close to being the largest European online community. As you see here, Turkey's now 13th on a global scale. But if you look at the European marketplace, it's just 6th now. And it grew at 4%. Now, when you look at that number, please bear in mind that what we're doing is putting everybody on a level playing field. That's looking at people at 15 years old and above, and is looking at the internet access at home and at work. Now, just bear in mind that there's an awful lot of people in Turkey in particular who are accessing the internet not at home and not at work, maybe from communal libraries, universities, cafes. So the larger internet population is around 33 million. This is really what stands out to me, is the level of engagement the Turkish community have in terms of its usage of online. So they're now 3rd in Europe in terms of the hours spent per month online. On average, approaching 1.5 days online. Now, we talked about, Tumai talked about putting his and some of the larger internet properties in context with the global businesses. Global businesses have the majority, are almost all American, and the majority of their visitation is outside. It's 2/3 of their visitation is outside the States now. 90% of Noctas, and in fact 90% of nearly all of those, are inside Turkey, with just a small amount of visitation from outside. Now that has good and bad, of course. For advertisers within Turkey, you know that the vast majority of your impressions are being delivered to people in Turkey. But it's interesting to see that there is growth outside, and that's the wider diaspora of the Turkish community. This was where I, last year I came here and talked to you about the launch of a new video product that we had. And it's now a year on, and we have a year's worth of data to look back at. And this is where I think things are going to get really exciting for this country in particular. So in terms of videos, and this is on a monthly basis, there are 4.3 billion videos run every month. 200 videos per viewer per month. 23 hours per viewer. 23, yes, per month per viewer. And on average of 7 minutes a video. So this country is engaging in long-form video, almost like no other country at all. And those growth figures, 65%, 54%, 77%, that indicates that this is a huge opportunity for the online medium to gain advertising revenues from the TV marketplace. And to put you into context, you're third in the world. Quite surprising, really, because really this is a rapidly growing marketplace. And so the growth in usership of videos is quite remarkable. And if you look at some of the other comparable marketplaces, look at Mexico, Brazil, Russia even, their usage and time spent online is way below that of Turkey. Not surprisingly, Facebook and Google are at the top, but Nocta is fourth, or even very close to third with Dailymotion, and MyNet coming a little further behind. So the opportunity for video is clear, and I for one am absolutely astounded at the growth of it. What I'd like to do is also talk a bit about social, and much of my comments are related to a new white paper that we just wrote called The Power of Like, and please, by all means, go to our website and download it. It's quite a good read. I hope it doesn't put you to sleep. But what it's talking about is the expansion and the ability to put social media impressions into a format that are comparable with normal brand advertising impressions. Because we're all too familiar with looking at great numbers, but not being able to make those numbers comparable. And I think that what we're trying to do is help people put into context social media with their normal spends on TV, radio, and brand advertising. Going back, just 4% of the online population does not social network. So you're behind the States, where nearly everybody engages in some kind of social networking activity during the course of a month. But I think that's it's just a phenomenon that surprises me. So Facebook, way up there. You're not maybe surprised that Twitter is second. Now this is my challenge. So we have the local competitor, Ekşisoluk. I have to say that 2 or 3 times in the course of this little slide, so bear with me. What I'm very delighted to see, though, is that Ekşisoluk, attracts people for 33 minutes every month on average, and Twitter is only 22 minutes. And when you compare their growth over the last year or so, you'll see that they were tracking each other all the way up until, say, May or June of this year, when Twitter started to really take a gain and a hold in the marketplace. And it remains to be seen if Twitter's competitor can keep pace and catch up. But they're engaging their consumers with almost 50% more time. So this new product of ours that is called Social Essentials tries to leverage our panel and some proprietary technology that we've worked through with Facebook. We're trying to create a methodology which allows us to give you insight into the size, the composition, behavior, and brand engagement within the Facebook environment. So what we're doing? Well, we're comparing the reach and frequency. So reach and frequency is what we're all talking about in terms of advertising. So reach and frequency of a brand's Facebook presence to other media channels. So you have a like-for-like comparison. We're also looking at whether or not the communications, the impressions, are reaching the target audience that you're trying to reach. It helps you tailor-make marketing campaigns and partnerships through the Facebook audience. And it also allows the ability to Facebook to match or benchmark your brand's presence with your competitor's brand's presence. Right now, often you only have a single view, and now we're trying to broaden that view. I saw Coca-Cola out there, and are they a sponsor? Yes, they are a sponsor. So probably no surprises that Facebook of the globals has globally the largest number of fans. What was my surprise, actually, was Starbucks came second. I hadn't realized its global empire had grown so rapidly. All of those brands are American. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised at that. But it'll be interesting to look as years go on to see when the first European brand reaches that list. We're talking about 34 million fans. It's a huge number. To put this into context, on the right-hand side, we're looking here at Bing's Facebook fan base. So the fans are only with 1.7 million. But when you look at the friends of fans, that explodes to 232 million friends of fans. It's a fantastic opportunity for them and to expand and communicate with the fans and the friends of fans fan base. To put it into another context, in terms of a reach and frequency context, if you look at Starbucks' reach in the USA, their fans have a reach of very nearly 3%, and the friends of fans have a reach of nearly 5%. So you're talking about nearly 8% reach just by messages and impressions that reach out to fans and friends of fans for one brand. And that includes both earned and paid for advertising on Facebook. So what we've looked at here is the number of exposures per person that brand fans can be exposed to. So, for example, here, Avia's fans are exposed to 21 impressions for the Avia brand during the course of a month. Now, they include news feeds, paid-for ads, stories from friends or sponsored social ads. But what it means is that the repetition and the exposure to a brand is quite phenomenal. And you see that to even the friends of fans, those exposures are half, but it's certainly basically free. And so the power for the use and tracking of what is the work that's done on Facebook is possible, and certainly very exciting to be able to explore. Moving on, last year I talked about the click, or the death of the click, and how the click had declined over time and was now at a desperately low rate of 0.1%. And I'm pleased to report that I've looked at click-through rates globally, and that level has stopped declining. So the good news is you can still get that same low rate of click. What I want to do now is talk a bit about broadly advertising and the way measurement has grown over time. So Comscore and our competitors, Nielsen, Gemius, TNS in some countries, have been looking at media measurement online based on a unique visitor and a page impression, and some time spent, all based around sites. So in the States, the IAB got together with a number of organizations, the ANA and the 4As, the Association of Advertisers and the Association of Advertising Agencies. And they reviewed how the industry was served in terms of how we look at and measure and monitor the online environment. And they came up with 5 principles that really are, I think, worthy of thought and for discussion around the world, anyway. First principle, so to move to a viewable impression standard and count real exposures online. Point is that what really matters is how many impressions are bought and sold, and how many people are reached with the advertising. Some of the online properties are so large now that, frankly, knowing that you're advertising on Microsoft is really not a help. What you need to know is, who has been reached by the advertising, and has that advertising reached its target audience? Secondly, online advertising must migrate to a currency based on audience impressions, not gross ad impressions. What does that mean? Well, it means that when ad servers count, they use impressions, gross impressions, and then they serve a cookie and give a report on the cookies as people. Well, we all know that cookie deletion plays quite a big effect on visitation. So it's no point in carrying on with a situation where we're counting cookies as people, and then getting a report that 10 million people, cookies were served, therefore 10 million people were reached. Actually, cookie deletion factor means that fewer than that number of people were reached. And in fact, what happens is that the frequency with which they were reached is not as low as one would have thought, it's higher. So they want a realistic response to be able to count people and real impressions and understand what the frequency of a campaign is, to the extent that then we'll start to learn what effective frequency of a campaign should be. Because all ad units are not created equal, we must create a transparent classification system. It's quite simple. It's basically meaning that there are different sizes and shapes of banners. Some are rich media, some are videos, some are just static banners. a classification system to value those can also help our understanding of the value of the advertising. Determine interactivity metrics that matter for brand marketeers so that marketeers can better evaluate online contribution to brand building. So right now, there are a number of ways to measure the interactivity with which individuals interact with an ad. And what they're saying is, if we really are going to get to grips with this medium, we need to know and have a commonly agreed standard of what interactivity means. Digital measurement must become increasingly comparable and integrated with other media. Talking about, we want to get an agreed GRP, reach and frequency, and understand the value compared to other media. So, Comscore listened, and we've done two things. We created a product called Campaign Essentials, which does reach and frequency reporting, taking into account the cookie deletion factors and giving real people in terms of the reach and the frequency with which they are reached. And we bought a company called AdExpose, and AdExpose looks at the context of that ad and whether or not it was indeed seen, whether or not it was above or below the fold, how long people interacted with it. And we're bringing this to, the first part, Campaign Essentials, is available in Turkey, and AdExpose will be available in Turkey in the not-too-distant future. Just to give you a quick idea of what it looks like, it's a brand in reach and frequency, looking at primary and secondary audience, and campaign delivery, which makes for simpler understanding of what you've bought and indeed what you have sold. So, to wrap up, online engagement is going through the roof in Turkey. It's great for the medium, it's great for the country. Video growing at 54% in just 12 months is an astonishing achievement, and it provides an opportunity both for brand advertisers and publishers alike to develop better advertising messages that reach the Turkish population. We can now measure Facebook in terms that are representative of standard brand advertising, and the five principles that the IAB have created, I think, are very important. They need to be thought about. We need to talk about looking at campaign delivery rather than pages and unique visitors. Thank you.